Alrighty. And switching to me. There we go. Hey, everyone. This is the Libertarian Atheist Podcast. Today, we are welcomed by MK Lords. MK was on a few episodes of the Truth Over Comfort podcast, including one on privilege checking and why respecting others' beliefs can be in opposition to respecting that person's ability to decipher truth from fiction. I believe we used the words bullshit in both of those titles, if I recall correctly. Yeah, because, clickbait is always a great idea. Are you still there, MK? Okay, fantastic.
I am.
Video's still working. Good. She's an editor for Bitcoin Not Bombs and a co-host of The Freedom Fiends, probably the most fun radio show on there right now. Did you say shit last night's episode, by the way?
I did. I ruined the Fiend smut limit for a long time with that, apparently. So
oh no, that is,
it slipped out. I didn't expect it to be that word, but it did. So it went out before the custom.
An awful person, and that's why you're now on a show that's probably going to get about 1% of the people on there. So the topic of today is democracy, which we've delved into before, especially if you saw that recent video released. What do they call it? The cult of something? You are in a cult? Yeah.
Yes.
And
you were born into a cult.
You were born into a cult. Yes. What is it? Derek Freeman tried to get me into that. He wanted this. He suggested that I instead name it, there's a cult out there and you wouldn't believe what it is. So we're trying to figure out some kind of term.
I would not click on that headline as a matter of principle.
No, exactly. That's how I felt too. I was like, it's not going to draw on the right people. Okay. Well,
maybe.
So we're gonna talk about ego depletion and all as well. So ego depletion is an idea that's not really talked about in a lot of libertarian shows or many shows I've heard of, but I think it can actually relate to democracy quite well. So ego depletion refers to the idea that self-control or willpower draw upon a limited pool of mental resources that can be used up. When the energy for mental activity is low, self-control is typically impaired, which would be considered a state of ego depletion. The central and most tested prediction of the resource model of self-control is that engaging in controlled, willful action quickly consumes and depletes this limited inner capacity, leaving one in a state of ego depletion. In this depleted state, further efforts at self-control are prone to failure. The main evidence in support of ego depletion comes from studies showing that existing self-control on one task impairs performance on subsequent, ostensibly unrelated self-control tasks. For instance, regulating one's emotions can reduce performance on subsequent tasks, such as solving a difficult puzzle, squeezing a hand grip exerciser, sustaining mental representations in working memory, or naming the color of printed words in a Stroop task. Have you ever heard of a Stroop task before?
No.
Okay, it's really neat. What they do is they show you the word blue, and the letters are in red. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to try to quickly guess what it is. And essentially,
as in the word or the color?
You're supposed to state what the color is.
Oh, I see.
And then another test, you're supposed to state what the word is.
Oh, gotcha.
So it just kind of
keep
messes,
it mixed up.
Yeah, they keep it mixed up in order to be able to get that. There was actually another test that they did in regards to ego depletion that I found really interesting. What they did was you had a group in a room. One of the people in the group had to remember 2 numbers. The other group had to remember 5 numbers. And then they had to walk from one room to another room. And while they were doing that, they didn't know they were getting tested for this. A woman comes out of the lobby, and she comes up to them and says, I have some fruit and I have some cake. I just got out of a meeting. We have to give these away right now, or else we're going to have to throw it out. The group that had to only remember 2 numbers, they went in there going 1, 3, 1, 3. That's easy, 1, 3. 80% of them grabbed the fruit over the cake because they were able to use self-control and go, cake, oh, I don't know, that's going to make me fat, yada, yada. I shouldn't do that. The group that had to remember 5 numbers, 80% of them grabbed the cake instead. And it has to do with the idea that whenever you're choosing, whenever you have to actually think about one specific topic, you end up giving up on other faculties of your brain. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
So just so I can kind of knock this out a little bit more here, the mechanism by which this works has to do with motivational orientation and gratification. Essentially, as human beings, we attempt to balance long-term versus short-term goals. Yes, heroin is probably awesome, but this could lead to issues in the long term. When we enact self-control in one arena, part of the reason we do that is to achieve a long-term goal. I choose not to eat cake because I don't want to look like Chris Christie. Self-control is often initiated when discrepancies between desired states and current states are detected. But there is a point where attempting to control one factor can lead to a decline in another. As an analogy towards exercising, if I run 30 miles, it's going to be really hard for me to do 300 squats afterward because I'm using the same muscle. So the way it works mechanistically is that an act of self-control, people experience a shift in this monitoring process, such that they become less attentive to cognitive and affective signals indicating a conflict or discrepancy between desired and current states. Instead, they notice and attend to cues associated with reward and gratification. With shifts in motivation, with this shift in motivation, it turns away from restraint and towards gratification, and parallel shifts in attention away from conflict and discrepancy and towards the possibility of reward. People become more prone to disinhibited behavior, approaching appetizing stimuli with abandon, i.e., I want cake. In other words, self-control depletion is not some mysterious result of loss of self-control resources, but rather the result of shifts in motivations, attention, and emotion. So with all that stated, and I hope I didn't talk about it way too quickly because that's usually a problem of mine. What I wanted to kind of get to here, though, was the idea of how that applies to democracy. And there's no articles or essays or overly verbose theses about how democracy and ego depletion play together, but can either of you kind of think of different ways where the two kind of work synergistically or antithetically towards one another?
It seems to me that what that would suggest is with elected representatives, they would, even if they are devout, righteous, by and large virtuous people, which I would argue is an impossibility to ever get elected in the first place, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
If you do find one of those people and they do make it into office, they can try to remain upstanding and virtuous for a while, but the system is so slanted against that that they will eventually burn out and just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I found interesting about this was the concept of willpower as a muscle. Getting some echo here, sorry about that. So one of the things they were saying is, so you work on something and it's unrelated tasks, you kind of wear yourself out, similar to when you're exercising, and then you're kind of worn out afterwards, and it makes it harder to focus on tasks. And so there's some kind of like implied premises here, I guess, about like multitasking, for example, how multitasking could be this, it could drain people really quickly. And if people are in a constant state of being drained, I could see them being lazier. And I mean, a whole host of activities, you know, when it comes to being informed about what's going on. You know, if you believe in this idea of democracy as people being able to, you know, kind of force the government to, I'm sorry, the echo is really like distracting me.
What's the echo? Are your headphones in, or is there?
Yeah, I'm getting an echo. Sorry, I don't know where it's coming from. Do
you want to try turning off your camera and turning it back on just to see if there's any issues with bandwidth or anything else?
Yeah, we'll try that.
Okay.
So, okay, that's better actually. So I'll just do that. So yeah, if you believe in democracy as a way for the people to exert their rights through government, then this could be problematic if you're dealing with a large group of people who are suppressed, who are maybe not acting in their best interest through stress, through environmental factors, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what it takes to make a politician, because what we're kind of talking about here, ego depletion really plays a part into the U.S. political system, because you have a politician whose basically his job is to, one, basically be an actor, because it's assumed that whatever they're stating isn't necessarily their true intentions, at least by like logical, cynical people like ourselves. So they're never really allowed to go up on stage and say, well, you know what, fuck that guy. You're not allowed to say that, right? So you have to kind of push forward this puritanical idea of the self, on top of wearing uncomfortable suits on a constant basis, always standing upright, doing all the nice little actor things, trying to keep your diet in charge and everything else so that you look perfect and presentable, wearing makeup so that you can talk to Nancy Grace about how bad marijuana is.
Unless you're Chris Christie.
Unless you're Chris Christie. And then you just eat your way to a really, hopefully, quick death. And then from there, you're supposed to, according to libertarians, at least people believe in the democratic process, Libertarian Party people, then from there, you're supposed to toss aside all of the money incentives that you have to make the government larger, on top of peer pressure by all the peers surrounding you, telling you to try to expand the government for whatever their program happens to be.
Essentially acting against the incentive structure in your own rational self-interest.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, you get kicked out of the party if you're not bringing in enough money. There is a common joke that Madam Pelosi stated, I had 400 lunches last year. And it wasn't that she was trying to state, I eat a lot. But one of the ways by which a politician garners money is obviously through lobbyists. But you're not allowed to directly make a phone call to a lobbyist from your office. Instead, you have to go to a special building. And there's these buildings right outside of Congress where you have politicians who go in there. They make phone calls to lobbyists, state, hey, I'm going to have a lunch tomorrow. It's $5,000 a plate. And they get to go in there. Then they talk about what they want. So, and you are pushed forward if you have more lunches because you're bringing more money to the particular party. Every single incentive there is to go against what people assume you're supposed to do. So I don't think that necessarily politicians are evil, although Joe Biden's a dick. But it's more a matter of it is actually impossible for them to be able to be what we want them to be. And so instead of trying to shame these people, you just got to recognize the fact that this is a completely impossible job. And the only person that could do this would be, I guess, a complete sociopath. But even them, they still only have so many chemicals in their brain. They're not super powered. But that's kind of what we want. We want someone who's completely stoic, who does not go towards any incentives whatsoever, who goes against their own self-interest in what they do.
Sociopaths don't do that.
No, because it's antithetical to the narcissistic aspect of sociopathy, because it's this weird kind of altruism. So it's just fake. It's impossible.
What this says is not that we need to better the system, but that democracy will never be part of the solution.
Yeah, that you are acting. It's actually impossible to do it. MK, I believe your video's back on.
Yeah. And so what I found was interesting too is how these tasks were unrelated, but I'm wondering how an accumulation of related tasks kind of wear people down. For instance, we have a political season coming up. There's going to be a lot of debates and crap like that people are going to be forced to listen to. And I think really by the time election time comes around, people are just so sick and tired of hearing all this obvious bullshit that yeah, I mean, their brains are kind of like mush, you know, they're overwhelmed with these choices maybe, or they don't even know what to do, or they're just completely motivated by fear because, you know, their in-group has been wearing them down, trying to scare them against the out-group and stuff like that, you know, they go, you know, to election day and first of all, I don't really think voting is that meaningful. I don't really think it has that much of an impact. Yeah. But considering that you're sending these zombified people in to vote, I mean, yeah, there's not going to be a good outcome of that. And I do wonder if there's a gradual wearing down through the election season to get to that point where, you know, you're at election day and it's just like, fuck, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is whenever you think about the political debates, the fact of the matter is that what they're supposedly going for is independence. And what independent means is that you're like, even if you believe in democracy, you're such a worthless hunk of shit that you couldn't figure out which one of the people you actually wanted to vote for. So you're really vying for the dumbest people possible who truly believe that whatever this person says is actually going to be true. So that's why these debates are just absolutely ridiculous. Like you watch it and you're just blown away with how mind-numbing the entire thing is. And the fact that these people are doing this all day, like all they do is just say fake stuff all day.
And you have to find some way to make it entertaining so you don't, you know, break the TV or whatever.
Yeah, well, I guess.
Turn it into a drinking game or something. I don't know. But
whatever drinking game I can make out of it, I'm pretty sure I'm going to deal with alcohol poisoning within about 5 minutes. I don't see it lasting very well. God, what would the drinking game be?
Take a shot whenever you hear certain keywords.
Hope.
Right.
Hope. Out in the first 5 minutes. I did this video called "The Stupidity of Political Hope," and I found that Barack Obama used the word hope 23 times in one speech. Wow. And he used the word hope monger, which is perfect. I was able to edit all together and then put hope monger at the end. I was like, I can't believe you just used the term that I wanted to use. Thank you, sir. Now
Thanks,
I believe
Obama.
Thanks, Obama. You did that one too. But so. And so the ego depletion idea, I think kind of plays into this, and it plays moreover just into the idea that democracy as a whole, all of the precepts that it's based on are false. Not only the idea that these people are going to be able to go against their own incentives, but the idea that anyone can represent the will of 100, 1,000, 10,000 people. Especially, I mean, if you just think about the fact that in the room right now, me and you, we're going to have differing views on what we want to do. Now, both of us are kind of anarchists, so we're not going to try to force each other what to do. But if we both believe that people should be forced to do what we want to do, then it'd be kind of impossible to be able to push those things forward. On every single bounds, there is no hope in this democracy thing. And I think it's very optimistic, though, to be able to kind of view it like that, because if you believed in the way in which they kind of view human nature, that's actually the really cynical position. It is the optimist who views that and goes, yeah, that sucks.
We can do better.
We can probably do better than that. I don't think it's begging or asking for too much. Although the way by which whenever I talk to individuals regarding democracy and they just regurgitate what they hear from Wolf Blitzer, it always kind of blows my mind. Like, MK, how often do you actually have to talk to like normal status people?
Almost every day at work, so I'm used to it. Yeah, it's been slow lately, so there haven't been as many people coming in. But we're not shy about what we believe there. So I mean, I do self-censor to a degree, but fortunately, I work at a cool enough place to where we can kind of be out about being anarchists to the clients, and you don't try to push it on them or anything, but we are able to push back if we hear some weird stuff. It's very right-wing military town down here, so you can imagine my frustration at some of the conversations, but they're interesting. And I think it's kind of taking a more lighthearted, humorous approach has kind of been positive. I mean, I've noticed a few people coming around on some things. Like, we have these big vote for nobody signs. Like, I have one behind my desk, and it says vote for nobody, and then on the back it says nobody will end the wars, nobody will feed the poor, nobody will fix the economy, and something else. But yeah, people, we have crazy bumper stickers and stuff everywhere too. We give out like Freedom Fiends pins and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's really awesome. Yeah.
That's a way better setup then. See, I was just thinking that like every single time you handed someone money, you just said, have you heard the truth about the Federal Reserve? Have you heard about 9/11?
Oh gosh.
Like, you just write 9/11 and everything.
That. I was actually good friends with people like that for a while. Some of the war conspiracy. There's
no one like that in the Free State Project at all. No, there's not any wacko conspiracy.
Have you heard the good word about 9/11? So,
have you heard about chemtrails, guys?
Oh Lord,
chemtrails. You heard about GMOs, Monsanto, or any other random thing that I decide to strike fear in your heart?
What about the ley lines?
The what?
Okay. I don't know.
Ley lines? No.
Ley lines.
I'm editing the fuck out of this afterwards, so we can kind of go with whatever we want. The magnets?
It's like these magnetic lines that supposedly connect all of these historical sites like Stonehenge, and Stonehenge is connected to. Oh, I don't remember all of them.
Documentary stuff. Yes.
Wait, is this have to do with Graham Hancock by chance?
I'm not sure.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Graham Hancock stuff. Although Graham is kind of interesting. I mean, he did do a lot of stuff on like Egyptology, and he kind of helped prove the idea that the Sphinx are like 15 to 20,000 years old or something. So that's cool. But then he like does all this other crazy.
Yeah, Forbidden Archaeology. Was that his book?
Yeah, I think Forbidden Archaeology was
okay.
I think what really gets me with the, especially the 9/11 truthers, is you see all these variations on the same basic conspiracy, and the infighting is even more vicious than it is in the Liberty Movement. People who are out of the 9/11 conspiracy movement don't really know that there is a pretty strong division between people who believe that it was an airplane, just a false flag airplane, cruise missiles, or my personal favorite, holograms.
Holograms, yeah.
My favorite is Tesla weapons.
Oh my God.
Oh,
I'm trying to remember.
Is that a new one?
Jennifer Goodwin? No, God. I'm going to fix all of this in editing afterwards because I want to make sure I got all the names right. But essentially the idea is that there were no planes at all, and that when the planes fell, there wasn't enough debris afterwards. So what actually occurred was that it evaporated.
A Tesla death ray.
With the Tesla death ray. And there are people like
I think their strongest argument for that is that it would be much cooler if that was the case.
Yeah, that's a fair
impressive.
argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
kind of
and
impressive.
There's like a 4-hour long presentation by this woman about it, and I started watching. I was like, "This is insane. This is like, why? Why would you even need Tesla death rays? If your argument is that they use demolitions, okay, like that's not. I mean, whatever. But Tesla death rays, really, and then they bring up thermite on top of it, which actually wouldn't really work to do the damage that they wanted to do.
So you put thermite inside the building and then hit it with Tesla death rays just to make sure everything is completely.
But your evidence for the thermite is samples got by one German guy from 3 different random people, and he didn't ask any of them how they got that thermite or where they were.
Oh,
and that's their argument for thermite. Scientific studies, everyone. Anyone can
Wow.
publish one of these days.
Death rays can't melt steel beams.
Death rays probably can melt steel beams.
I've seen
if they
Star Wars.
existed.
We know how these work.
Yeah, we do know. We certainly know exactly how they work. I guess we got to get back to topic real quick. Shit. No, I can turn this around. Most of the episodes are actually like 14 minutes. So like we already hit a lot of the good stuff. But by the way, PorkFest, are you speaking at all?
I was supposed to speak on Bitcoin, but I'm not. I'm instead just going to do some Fiends episodes, and I think I'm doing Sovereign Tech podcast, and I'm in a play. And
is the Agora Alley thing going on this year again? Did they finally cancel? Oh, okay, good deal.
So yeah, I'm giving a speech. Fuck it, we can throw this in the show because I want them to come, but the problem is that it's a Thursday at 9 a.m. because they fucked up my scheduling.
Oh, they do that.
Oh.
They set it up for 11 on, no, it was like 12 on Friday, which was perfect. And then they stated, oh, well, the topic didn't quite work with what we had set up. This was like 5 days ago. Then like, oh, we only have one open position. Thursday at 9 a.m. Is it PG rated, is what they asked me. And I stated the name of my speech is called Rapists Are Everywhere. So no.
Oh.
Because the whole thing is I go through rape statistics, child molestation statistics, and kidnapping stats. And I break down that your chances of either 3 of those happening to you are incredibly low, and that all of those are tools to use to manipulate people for more state control.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think there's like an audience for that, but all of them are going to be hungover on Thursday.
No one gets up until like 11.
No, except families and kids. And the little kid's walking in there and he's like, you see what happens with sex is that goes into here. And rape, this goes into here, and she doesn't want it. So this is rape, kids. Like,
I mean, I guess like the kids need to hear that the most. I mean, that like they shouldn't be paralyzed by fear of being kidnapped or
I found some
raped
great
or
stats.
something. I mean, that's
Chances
interesting.
Chances of a kid getting kidnapped by a stranger is 1 in 610,000.
Now, someone they know is much higher.
Much higher, but
Right.
you know what the highest is? The state.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Which they use the stranger danger fear in order to enact real strangers kidnapping people, but they have badges or laminates. I had a laminate. I didn't get a badge. It wasn't cool enough. But so
that's like the only case where they don't try to apply the stranger danger thing. It's like if it's a cop or a social worker, it's okay. Like stranger danger is.
Also, don't take drugs except the stuff they shove down your throat when they throw you in the foster home.
Yeah, exactly. All the fun drugs. This show's, by the way, is like I made it a point in the show to never talk about CPS, but it's going to happen because that's going to happen either way.
It's a major part of your life.
Yeah, it is still kind of like a huge aspect of what I do. But so it's 1 in 610,000 by a stranger. Do you know what the chances of being hit by lightning are? 1 in 210,000. So you're 3 times more likely to be hit by lightning than get kidnapped by a stranger.
I'm just picturing the poor son of a bitch who was actually, kidnapped and hit by lightning.
Oh, son of a bitch.
It's happened to someone.
At the same time in an airplane. Okay. Because chances of dying in an airplane crash or getting an airplane crash at all is 1 in 310,000, which is still higher than I'm comfortable with. Like the airplane one, that bothers me. 1 in 310,000. I wouldn't grab a gun. Wait, actually, I drive in a car every day.
So I wonder how much this kind of like media hysteria over some of these topics contributes to ego depletion, like just on a larger scale. I some of the videos I was watching mention like using advertising, for example, and ramping up advertising to, be more suggestive to kind of deplete people that way. And, I wonder, like, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the outrage, baiting and stuff like that. I mean, and it's always existed as long as news has existed. So, like, I wonder how much that has an effect on the kind of, I hate to use the word collective psyche, but you know what I'm talking about? Just the.
I don't think there's necessarily a problem with the term collective psyche. I mean, it's just whatever is the meme or in the zeitgeist. I think you have a really good point with ego depletion in that, though, because it's a matter of if you're constantly in a state of fear, trying to protect yourself, assuming that everyone around you is going to be evil in some kind of ways, then your ability to use critical thinking is going to be hampered because you have the flight or fight mechanism constantly being lambasted all the time. Whether you're in your car and you're assuming that everyone's going to hit you with your car, or whether it's as soon as you get out of your car, you're going to get murdered or robbed by some random individual. And if you were the kid and you're holding their hand, well, then if I let go of their hand, they're immediately going to get hit by a car or stolen, one or the other. So that can definitely lead to more manipulation. I think you could probably make a tie there with ego depletion, although that's just kind of any mechanism within your brain that's being overly used. It's kind of like being constantly on ecstasy and assuming that you're going to be happy whenever you're not on it. You're going to run out of dopamine after a while. I guess, it's almost like a kind of addiction to the idea of fear. And as a culture, I think the media has tried to foster that in some way.
I think, especially in regard to the democratic process, it also dovetails really nicely with the whole concept of rational ignorance. Essentially, your vote matters so little that when your ego gets depleted through the stresses of everyday life and paying attention to news and politics and all that, because it means so little, you can't actually afford to be completely irrational and fucking crazy with no real ramifications whatsoever.
Yeah.
At least not on the political process. It doesn't matter how nutty you are. The same people are going to get elected regardless.
Yeah. And another thing with that is another great aspect of democracy is the collective guilt. Well, the reason why that happened is because we voted in the wrong guy. And on top of that, though, the best bit is that you can watch CNN all day eating fucking Cheetos and assume that you're being informed and that you're doing something for democracy because you're staying informed, unlike those other sheeple. Because libertarians are the only people using the term sheeple. Whenever, I'm sure as fuck people in Slate magazine also use the term Orange Salon for that matter.
I cannot take anyone seriously who uses the term sheeple unironically.
I really hate that term. It is so derogatory. And I've heard it so many times and it never seems to hit them that, okay, if someone called you sheeple before you woke up to the truth, to quote Alex Jones, then you would tell that person to go fuck themselves. Like that's essentially it, because you're demeaning their.
It's a really bad PR move.
Yeah, you're demeaning their capacity to be able to move forward and creating enemy imagery at the same time. Should have drank that coffee before I did this.
Well, and you especially see that lack of critical thinking in those kind of conspiracy theory subcultures because of the intensified fear. I mean, it's like concentrated fear that they're consuming every day. Like CNN is bad and MSNBC is bad. Fox News is like horrible. But like if you spend all your time on InfoWars, I mean, you could have some serious problems. Like, and I don't know. It's a problem believing anything you read, but that stuff seems to be just highly concentrated fear.
It's not just fear that plays into. It also gives you a very inflated sense of self-worth because you know something that nobody else does. And really all you have to do to be better than all the sheeple is to exist.
Yeah. And the issue with that is the issue with faith and everything else is a lack of tools to be able to decipher what is true and what is false, because you are being inundated with rhetoric by these given individuals and never acknowledging or learning tools of logic to be able to discover what is true and what is false, along with the importance of being able to define your terms. So you'll hear words from people like, I don't know, chemtrails, aluminum dioxide, margarine, any of these particular terms without kind of kind of figuring out the backdrop of what these terms mean when we use the term we, when we use the term United States, and what those terms actually mean, what politician means. You can't quite break them down. So you're always in a state of fear, because without the tools of grammar and logic, every single thing you state is either rented or borrowed.
They believe they're thinking critically, but they're actually being critical of thinking.
Yeah, they're just regurgitating the words of another individual, and that other individual themselves is not a sheeple, but an individual who also wasn't able to learn how to interpret what is true and what is false. And God knows public schooling doesn't quite do that, and neither does a belief in God. So both are kind of antithetical on that end. But I think the media idea in regards to ego depletion is certainly a good enough point. It's just a matter of, you have a number of individuals who have essentially high amount of narcissism and a low amount of legitimate self-esteem, and not living consciously and not actually acknowledging what is occurring within their own lives. So they get to feel a sense of self-importance while living in a constant state of fear. And they feel empowered, supposedly, because of it. Man, it's a hell of a catch-22. And, whenever I state these things out loud, I just go, man, we're fucked.
We are.
We're fucked. Like, it's that constant thing going in me. Oh, we're fucked.
What this tells me, though, is we don't have to worry about burning the fucking system to the ground, because it's going to take care of its damn self. All we need to do is survive it, which might be the tricky part.
Yeah, well, here's the thing is, we're also using the term, we're going to survive it. And it's just like, I'm pretty sure every single human being has thought they were going to be there for the apocalypse because they want to feel important. You just want to feel important. You don't want to miss the party. You don't want to miss out on something occurring. I think that might start to go down a bit after you have like kids and stuff, where you're like, they'll be there for the party.
That's why I don't want to have kids. I feel like my my survival chances will stay much higher. Although that does create, a unique food source in case you really start starving.
Yes. Yeah. Or in case you want to sacrifice him so you can become the king or something.
There you go.
There you go. I have no illusions about surviving that shit. I'll be part of the 90% that the zombies get. I'll fight to the end, though, but no.
You just gotta read Davy Barker's book and, just get that patch of ketchup on it so that they slip.
There's some good tips in that book. Very good tips.
No, it's good.
No.
I just want to get my hands on those Tesla death rays.
Tesla death rays.
Well,
okay.
Yes.
We need to kickstart a Tesla death raise for the Libertarian Atheist podcast. That's our first fundraising effort. MK, you in?
I'm in. It's this project I can stand behind.
Fantastic.
I think you guys will be responsible with the death ray.
Yeah, so
they can only explode when you shoot thermite, apparently. So
yes,
they don't actually sound that dangerous.
So I'm gonna go ahead and just do that thing where I conclude everything, and then it's gonna be all nifty and nice all together.
This will be coherent by the time we're done with it.
Oh, absolutely.
I believe it.
Yeah, 30 hours of editing later. Okay, let me go and switch to that. Yeah, thanks for being on the show, MK. So the main things here, of course, are the ideas of media manipulation, how that ties into, as well as political manipulation, as well as the public consciousness, which is constantly going on this idea that individuals should go away from their own incentives to commit altruistic acts, which are in fact antithetical to everyone else, while at the same time being these hyperhumans that are moving towards something greater than all of us in some kind of religious fashion that they call democracy, the U.S. Constitution, and the United States of America. And the only way that we can kind of move forward and away from that is by understanding the fact that politicians are simply humans, cops are simply humans, teachers are simply humans, and that we all have our own limitations based off of our own brains and the limitations that our brains actually have. So as long as we can kind of think consciously while we're doing that, we're going to be way better off. And on that note, MK, what is your website? What can we plug?
Bitcoinnotbombs.com and freedomfiends.com is where you can see a lot of my work. So,
and of course, libertarian-atheist. By the way, there were some people who sent me messages that stated, hey, your domain doesn't go anywhere. It's E before I when you spell atheist, folks. E before I. That I before E, except that's what C is bullshit. I don't know why they tell kids that. It's not true whatsoever. E before I, okay? Libertarian-atheist.com. The podcast is on there. It's also on Stitcher. It's on fucking everything because I went ahead and took over the Truth Over Comfort RSS feed, put the Libertarian Atheist one on there in case there's some random conservative People who are on Truth Over Comfort, I guess they're probably off now. We'll see. I'll see if I get any funny emails. But yeah, libertarian-atheist.com. Make sure to also check out that other video, You Are in a Cult. So thank you guys very much for listening, and thank you, MK, for being on. Thank you, Calvin, as well.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so that was